My brother, who is well known for being a top student and a good baby, has always been a source of jealousy for me as I am constantly being overshadowed by him. One day while I was washing dishes in the kitchen, my brother silently approached me from behind and hugged me. Startled, I exclaimed, "Let go of me." He chuckled and said, "Is this such a big reaction to a hug? You've never reacted like this before." I shivered. "What's wrong with you?" He countered, "Isn't this what you wanted?" It suddenly dawned on me, and I quickly ran back to my room to search for the candy in my pocket. Sure enough, the candy my best friend sent me had disappeared without a trace. The packaging clearly stated, "This product will make anyone who eats it fall deeply in love with you. Having this candy means having a sweet romance. P.S. Expires after 3 months." My first thought was to keep it a secret at all costs, not letting my parents or his dad find out. Otherwise, I'd be in big trouble. Following me into the room, my brother smiled and said, "If you don't want our parents to know, then be my girlfriend." My face must have turned red. After all, my brother is quite handsome. I steadied myself against the table and reproached him, "Do you know what you're saying? How could you say such a thing to me?" He took out the packaging from his pocket and slowly approached me, closing the door behind him. In that small room, there were only the two of us, and Arlo's tall figure made me feel increasingly uneasy. Mainly, it was the way he was looking at me now. It was different from before. Filled with ambiguity and possessiveness, like the way a man looks at a woman. Realizing this, my heart trembled slowly. My best friend sent it to me, thinking she was just teasing me. Who would have thought it would actually work? I sheepishly said, "And besides, I didn't give it to you to eat, it was meant for someone I like." Arlo's tone turned cold. "Then who did you want to give it to?" Not wanting to provoke him, I quickly corrected myself, "No one, I just wanted to keep it for now." His expression softened a bit, and he glanced around my room, commenting, "It's really messy in here." Arlo's behavior now is strange, almost like a different person from before. He always had a clear sense of boundaries when it came to boys and girls. He had been raised in a single-parent family, with a busy father and a history of abuse from his caretakers when his father was away. So, my parents often took care of him, being good friends with his father, and knowing the troubles in his family, they were more than willing to help out. We practically grew up together, and my parents even treated him like their own son. I even felt like they valued him more in their hearts. After all, he excelled in both academics and manners, and was handsome to boot, making him quite popular at school. My father often boasted about him in front of others, subtly belittling me in the process. So deep down, I still harbored a bit of resentment towards Arlo. I was just too jealous of him. "When did you eat it?" I asked in confusion. "Why did you eat my candy?" 3 days ago, he rubbed his temples. "You don't keep things properly." I thought it was a mint candy and needed a quick pick-me-up. It suddenly dawned on me that day when I took a delivery, and my mom called saying Arlo was sick, and I mindlessly kept them together. I regretted, "Did anything seem off after you ate it? Is it poisonous?" Arlo looked at me, his gaze filled with tension. "Yes, there was." He said, "I couldn't help but think of you, you were all I could think about." The closer you got, the more my mind stopped working, and my heart raced. I stammered, "Did those cheesy words really come from Arlo?" He tightened his grip on the candy box, looking a bit frustrated. I even went to the hospital for tests, thinking I had some strange illness, but turns out, there was nothing wrong with me. Oh, I was panicking. If my parents find out that it was me who caused this, I will never be able to live it down. I interrupted him, saying flatly, "Okay." Arlo seemed satisfied, a hint of a smile in his eyes. I quickly added, "We can only be platonic, you can't be too forward." He raised an eyebrow, nodding, "Or else. What do you think this is?" Feeling somewhat awkward and thinking that I had been too sensitive, I said, "Oh." I was almost convinced by him. Since that incident, I have been living in constant fear and guilt, always on edge and feeling like a criminal. Arlo glanced at me, and now, I cautiously observed my parents' reactions. Of course, they didn't notice anything unusual. The summer vacation had just begun, and my mom looked at me disapprovingly. "All day you play games and sleep in. You're graduating soon, shouldn't you be planning for yourself? Did you fail your English proficiency test again? I haven't seen you memorize any words." Arlo was standing beside us, smiling. "It's okay, aunt-in-law, I will make sure she studies hard." My mom lit up, grateful. Oh, thank you, Moo, that's a big relief. I had a feeling that these 2 months of summer vacation at home were going to be tough. As expected, in the evening when Arlo came to my room, my parents were so appreciative. Only I knew that him coming to my room wasn't just about teaching English. How many did you memorize? He stood by my side, slightly leaning over, his arm resting on the desk. I muttered, a few dozen. He glanced at me with bare contempt, then flipped through the dictionary in front of me. At your current pace, you should be memorizing at least 100 a day. I slumped. How is that ever possible? Do you want to kill me? Is it that hard? Do you think everyone has a photographic memory like you? Then start with 30, then 50, gradually increasing to 100. One summer should be enough, he said. I looked at him in horror. Do you really like me? Why do you want to torture me like this? He patted my head, a smirk on his face. It doesn't affect me. After that, a 30-minute quiz. I'll check your answers. He stared at my pale face and his smirk didn't fade. If you make a mistake, I'll give you a kiss. I held my breath, staring at him in disbelief at his audacious and inappropriate request. He can't be the real Arlo, can he? The real Arlo is a serious, smart, and well-behaved student and wouldn't engage in this kind of teasing. 30 minutes went by quickly. Arlo approached me from behind and tapped the table lightly. Are you done memorizing? I looked up at him, ready to cry. I didn't memorize a single word. All I could think about was you wanting to kiss me. Arlo furrowed his brows, causing my heart to skip a beat. Half an hour, 10 words. What? Can you memorize them? I quickly nodded, yes. He turned and left, giving me some space. Phew. That was close. I thought he might actually have come to do it for real. Feeling relieved, I began to use my intelligence. I completed the task in less than 20 minutes, feeling confident as I reviewed the words and found for mistakes. Nervously, I looked at Arlo. He seemed to be considering something, on purpose? I blushed, calling him crazy. He smiled. I'll let you off this time, but next time, it won't be that easy. Ignoring him, I ran to the living room to watch TV. I really didn't want to be with him in the same space. It was suffocating. Arlo followed me out as well, and my mom asked him how well I had memorized things. He said it was good, my memory was okay. My mom was very happy and decided to make soup for us to drink in the evening. I was lying on the sofa, with Arlo sitting beside me, separated by a decent gap. I was quite satisfied because it seemed like he knew to be more reserved with someone else at home. Arlo was peeling an apple. I thought he was doing it for himself, but after a while, he handed me the peeled apple. I instinctively glanced at my mom, worried that she would notice something fishy, especially since Arlo had never been this nice to me before. Luckily, she was busy watering the plants on the balcony and didn't notice what was happening on my end. I quickly took the apple from him and took a bite. Arlo smiled, his eyes curved with amusement. Is it tasty? I nodded absent-mindedly. My mom walked into the living room, saw me holding a huge apple and started rolling her eyes. Such a big apple, can you finish eating it? Don't you know to share half with your brother? Feeling unjust, I slowly put down the apple. Arlo came to my defense. She asked me, but I didn't want any. Fake politeness. I snorted. While my mom turned to clean the standing air conditioner, Arlo grabbed my hand. I tried to pull it away, but his grip was strong and his fingers, long. I couldn't resist, and his skin was even fairer than mine. I was anxious. What would my mom think if she saw the scene? I stared at him intensely, but the more I glared, the more he smiled contentedly. His fingers slowly moved up my wrist, grasping the apple in my palm. In a split second, when my mom turned around, he quickly withdrew his hand and casually took a bite from the spot where I had eaten. Crunch. I could hardly breathe, fearing my mom would notice that he was eating my apple. Luckily, her eyesight was not too sharp. She was busy talking about why my dad hadn't returned yet and went into the kitchen to cook. I angrily messaged him, questioning, "Why are you eating my apple?" Arlo's lips curled up. And he calmly replied, "Eating the apple that your girlfriend has eaten, any problem with that?" I swallowed hard, cheeks flushing. Desperately, I asked, what should I do if we're secretly dating under our parents' noses? And the person is actually my brother? The next day, I was still lazing in bed, half asleep and half dreaming, when I suddenly felt someone's gaze on me. Opening my eyes, I saw Arlo. I quickly became alert, wrapping myself tightly in the blanket, cautiously asking, "Why did you come into the room? You didn't lock the door." "My lock is broken." Arlo raised his eyebrows slightly, seeming to have discovered something extraordinary. "Damn. I'll get it fixed today." "Whatever." He looked down at me calmly. "Get up for lunch." Then he added, "Mom and Dad are not at home today." My heart relaxed a bit, at least I didn't have to worry about them seeing something unusual. But then a sense of danger crept in. With our parents away, wouldn't Arlo be more inclined to do as he pleased? I got up and looked at myself in the mirror, slightly bloated face with a pimple on the forehead. How could Arlo look at me in this state with such an interested expression? When I went to wash up, I noticed that the toothbrush and cup had been replaced. From the previous black and white set, they now were a blue one and a pink one, even with corresponding cartoon characters, one male and one female. I angrily walked up to Arlo with the cup. "You're being too obvious. What if Mom and Dad find out?" Arlo, busy serving lunch, glanced to the side. "They'll just think it's a sibling style." "Are they blind? Or do you think we're wearing couple pajamas?" I looked at him and then back at myself, getting silent. A blue checkered one and a pink checkered one. Mom always bought couple pajamas for convenience. Enough. Lunch was sumptuous. With 4 dishes and a soup, full of color, aroma, and taste. Arlo, wearing an apron, sat across from me. His hair was getting a little long, the bangs sometimes covering his eyes, highlighting his handsome and gentle features. Suddenly, I understood my parents very well. Arlo was capable in every aspect, intelligent, good-looking, and responsible. If I were them, perhaps I would also favor him. After eating and drinking to my heart's content, I lounged on the sofa like a boss, while Arlo dutifully cleared the leftovers and went to do the dishes. Suddenly, I felt that being liked by him was quite nice. I thought of something and texted my best friend, "What are the signs if someone ingests the candy? Will there be any visible changes?" "Friend, they'll become completely focused on you, find you adorable even if you burp, get jealous easily, can't stand you being close with the opposite gender, even if they're usually rational, they'll become childish when it comes to you." That's what my cousin told me. Me, did your cousin's confession succeed? Friend, it did. They're super sweet together now. Friend, how about you? Have you won over Arlo? Me, not yet. I didn't dare tell her about the incident where Arlo mistakenly ate the candy. Based on her description, would Arlo also become like that? I couldn't quite imagine it. After the rest, Arlo made me study vocabulary and take quizzes. Seeing my distraction, his tone turned stern. "I'm spending time tutoring you to help, not to see you being absent-minded." I wanted to retort. But I also knew he was doing it for my own good. Knowing I was in the wrong, I shook my head to clear my thoughts and focused on the questions. However, when I finished the paper, the score was dismal. After yesterday, Arlo had a good understanding of my level. He pointed out the wrong answers, explaining each one. His voice was pleasant, with a young, smooth texture, and I gradually got immersed in it. Unknowingly, 3 hours passed, and Arlo brought me a glass of iced orange juice. I took a sip, the sweetness and coolness making me feel much better. "When can I go out for a walk?" I eagerly asked. "When you pass the quiz." "Then I'll probably never get to go out?" I asked pitifully, looking at him. "I want to go ice skating." Arlo took out a paper, mercilessly saying, "Write the words you just memorized again. Check and double check." Arlo didn't seem to have answered, just pulling out a chair and placing it opposite my bed, starting to dictate words for me to spell. Damn, it felt like high school all over again. Arlo tilted his head and chuckled, "If you spell 3 words wrong, I won't go out tonight." I was quite awake. After studying for a week, perhaps hearing the call of my heart, Arlo finally agreed to take me out for some fresh air. He asked me to help out at my mom's tea house. I was grateful just to be able to go out. In the quiet afternoon, a few of Arlo's brothers came to the shop to hang out. One of them, named Guojing, stood out to me because his name sounded like that of Guojing from the novel. He patted my head and teasingly said, "It's rare to see you bring your sister out. Is she too pretty that you can't bear to let her go?" Arlo chimed in, "I treat her like my own sister. She doesn't have as many brothers as you think." Guojing playfully punched him. "Why are you being so stingy?" One of the boys nearby laughed. "Come on, last time I saved a photo of your sister, I almost got beaten up by you." Only in my heart did I silently reply, because he took the wrong medicine. While Arlo was in the kitchen moving supplies, Guojing grabbed my hand to read my fate. "Have you dated anyone in college?" "No." "Then you must have someone you like, right?" I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Guojing examined my palm and finally said a profound sentence, "Be careful of your brother disrupting your love. He's quite accurate." Arlo walked up from behind me and softly said, "Love?" Guojing quickly let go of me, waving his hands. "Just kidding, just kidding." As customers entered the shop, I wiped my hands on my apron and went to greet them. Arlo frowned slightly, noticing something, and pulled me close by the waist. "Wait a moment." With so many people watching, I tensed up. He held the back of my dress collar and used his body to shield my back. "Your zipper has burst open. Let me help you pull it up in the kitchen." I didn't dare to move too much, obediently walking ahead. Guojing took care of entertaining the customers in the kitchen. Arlo asked me to stand still and not move, then he grabbed the zipper pull and slid it down from where it got stuck. When it got caught in the middle, he hesitated for a moment before gently loosening his grip. That position, any girl would understand, was awkward. I prayed the zipper pull wouldn't break. "Don't pull it down too low, I was afraid he would see something he shouldn't." Arlo murmured in acknowledgement and finally adjusted the stuck part. As my waist tightened, the dress zipper was securely pulled up. I covered the zipper and turned around, embarrassedly saying, "I might have gained some weight from eating at home these days." Arlo looked down and then back at my face. "Next time, buy a higher quality dress." We walked back out together. Guojing pointed to a table in the corner where some customers were sitting. "Looks like your classmate is here." The guy felt our gaze, looked up, and saw me. "Oh my, it's Lucho. Why is he sitting with a girl?" In just a few seconds, my mood swung greatly. Relieved, there was a guy sitting next to the girl. Lucho greeted us. "I heard your mom opened a tea shop here, so I passed by to take a look. Didn't expect to see you here too." "Yes." I couldn't be happier. Today was the only day I would be working at the shop. Lucho seemed surprised for a moment, then smiled. "I'm lucky to have run into you here." "Is he trying to flirt with me? Does it mean he has some interest in me?" I couldn't help but feel a flutter in my heart. Arlo said, "Hello, I'm her brother." Lucho nodded. "Hello, Lilia often mentions that she has a very outstanding brother." Arlo shot me a playful look. "Really?" We chatted for over 10 minutes before Lucio and his friends had to leave. "Next time you and your friends come, let me know in advance, I'll give you a discount," I said. In my mind, I added, "But please don't bring friends next time." "Well, I won't be polite then." I saw them off. Before Lucio got in the car, he turned back and asked me, "It's been a while, how's your ice skating practice going?" "Oh, it hasn't progressed at all. With the hot weather recently, would you like to come out sometime to practice?" Is he asking me out? I actually fell in love with ice skating because of Lucio. At that time, our dorm mates were all obsessed with Korean dramas and had the sudden idea to go to the ice skating rink for a romantic encounter, only to find it full of parents with their kids playing around. All 4 of us were novices, with only the third roommate having some basic skills, helping us move slowly while clinging to the rail, occasionally enduring the disdainful looks of the children. Unexpectedly, Lucio appeared at the ice rink. He was a popular figure on campus, the kind of harmless handsome guy who could cause a stir with just a candid photo posted on the confession wall. He was accompanied by a cute little boy who looked remarkably similar to him. It seemed like he had brought the kid for some fun. I whispered to the third roommate, "He's so adorable, do you think he's his son?" Without hesitation, the bold roommate waved at him and shouted, "Senior. Is the cute boy next to Lilia your son?" Even though her voice wasn't loud, it was enough for Lucio, 10 meters away, to hear clearly. I covered my face in embarrassment. Lucio, known for his good temper, didn't get mad. He patted the little boy's head and smiled helplessly. He's the second child of my parents. Oh, he's your brother then. Phew, that's a relief. Hee. After that, Lucio took on the responsibility of teaching us skating. I was quite clumsy, with poor balance. Whenever I let go of the rail, my legs would start shaking, and Lucio had to support me to find my center of gravity. I stumbled into his arms several times, almost causing him to fall too. I was afraid he might misunderstand, so I awkwardly explained, "I'm really clumsy, not trying to take advantage of you." Our 3 roommates laughed, and he grinned. "Yeah, I can see that." In the end, most of Lucio's time was spent on me. The other roommates gradually started playing on their own, while I still needed his arm to glide along. It was those extra 20 minutes that stirred something in me. Especially when he would frequently look back at me while teaching other girls, making sure I was okay and not falling. That special treatment, it's hard for a girl to resist. So when Lucio asked me out for a private hangout, I was almost about to agree in a moment of excitement. Fortunately, the image of Arlo's disapproving eyes flashed in my mind, stopping me just in time. After all, I wasn't just Arlo's sister anymore, I was also his girlfriend. At least for these 3 months. I held back my sadness and found an excuse to decline. I have to help my mom at the shop during the day and study for the English CT6 at night, so I might not have the time. Lucio lowered his gaze, seeming a bit disappointed, but he masked it and said, "I see. That's okay, let's talk again when you're free." I nodded, feeling a bit heartbroken. Would he ever ask me out again? I was still thinking about it during dinner, my appetite waning, until my dad asked if I was tired. Arlo was surprisingly quiet that night. During our study session, his tone was subdued, and he barely said anything when I made mistakes. He didn't even use the opportunity to make any requests. The next day, a girl came to help at the shop. She was Arlo's junior from elementary school, with big eyes, short hair, and very diligent. I wasn't sure if she came to work at our shop during the summer or just to help out. Guijing winked, "Be careful, your position is in danger. Arlo is very caring towards her at school, almost like a half-sister." She shook her head, smiling shyly. "It's different, you are definitely closer." With my woman's intuition, she has a thing for Arlo. Most of the time, she would be following closely behind Arlo, and except for 3 to 5 in the afternoon and after 7 in the evening, there wasn't much business in the shop. They seemed to be engrossed in conversation, and Arlo treated her very gently. While serving tea, she accidentally knocked over a tray, burning her hand and leg, and breaking a teapot. Tea leaves and water scattered all over the floor. He took her to the bathroom to cool down the burn with cold water, and I thought to clean up the mess, but he stopped me. "Go buy burn ointment for Joyen." After buying the ointment, I saw Arlo applying it to her hand. The warm yellow light in the tea house cast a soft, cozy glow on his face. Joyen's face was red, even her eyes. Seeing this scene tugged at my heart, causing a sudden ache. Arlo handed her the ointment. "Apply it yourself to your leg." Then he turned to me and explained, "I found the burn ointment in the drawer." After coming to my senses, I seriously considered the cause of my heartache just now. Perhaps people are inherently selfish. I'm the only one who has been cared for so diligently by Arlo since childhood. Now, his patience is suddenly being given to someone else. Is he worried about losing his sister? In the evening, my mom came to take over the shift, and Arlo and I walked back home. The night breeze was slightly chilly, and I said, "Joyen likes you." Arlo lowered his head, "Probably. After the sedative's effect wears off, you'll return to normal. Would you like to give it a go with her?" Arlo stopped in his tracks and looked at me. "You really want me to like someone else, don't you?" Under the dimming light, his brow furrowed, his tone displeased. Was it the effect of that sedative? He didn't want to hear me say those things. But I, surprisingly, didn't know how to respond. I hesitated to speak. He chuckled self-mockingly. "Since I switched shifts with Mom, we've moved the tutoring sessions to the day." The hunter asked why he didn't see me at the store, and I explained the reason. "Does that mean you have time now?" "Whether I have time is not something I can control." "Is it because your brother is too strict with you?" I replied with a crying emoji. During Arlo's class, I found myself daydreaming while listening to his voice. Guijing said he takes good care of Joyen at school. Just like he does with me, being meticulous in every aspect of life and studies. I remember when I had my first period during puberty. I was so naive at that time, not knowing that the pain and discomfort in my lower abdomen were signs of impending menstruation. I even drank ice-cold cola and ended up in excruciating pain within half an hour, unable to focus in class and sweating profusely, leaning on the desk. The teacher thought I was sick, called my parents, and even asked Arlo to come over. Arlo helped me up, then glanced at me, made me sit back down. Some girls came over to surround me, making the boys stay away. Arlo took off his school jacket and tied it around my waist, helping me into my dad's car and asking where my mom was. My dad said mom was busy with clients and asked him to take care of me and bring me to the hospital. I vividly remember Arlo furrowing his brows, saying that I had my period. My dad paused, laughed, and said, "I am her father, aren't you taking good care of her?" Later, my desk partner told me that Arlo had cleaned the bloodstains off the seat. Would he do the same for Joe Yen? The thought of that scene brought back that uncomfortable feeling in my heart. I tried to focus on his lecture, but my mind was filled with thoughts like, will Arlo have a girlfriend in the future? Will I become unimportant if he does? After I couldn't answer his question for the third time, Arlo's expression turned cold. If you don't want to attend the class, then we won't continue today. I could sense he was genuinely angry, and I panicked. I didn't want to skip the class. Arlo's sarcastic tone made me embarrassed and filled with anger and frustration. I am just like this. Are you acting like this just because you met me today for the first time? Arlo fell silent for a moment and then said, I know you want to find the hunter. I remembered what my best friend had told me. He will become someone who only has you in his heart, finds everything you do cute, feels anxious when he doesn't see you for a minute, he will become jealous, can't stand you being close to other guys, even though he's usually very rational, he becomes childish when it comes to you. His every move and thought now were influenced by a drug, not his true feelings. I suddenly dared not look into his eyes, turned around, put on my shoes, and left home. Unable to resist, I messaged my best friend, how is that guy now? Wasn't it supposed to wear off after 3 months? My friend replied, I don't know, they haven't reached 3 months yet. I felt a little despondent. When Arlo regains consciousness, he probably won't be the same as now. He might feel embarrassed and distance himself from me. But my feelings for him have changed a bit now. What should I do? The longer it takes, the harder it is to pull away. Me, if someone accidentally ingested it but didn't want to be with him, what should they do? Friend, then he probably wouldn't let you go. Me? Damn it. I didn't want to go home and didn't know where to go, so I walked aimlessly alone. In the end, I went to the cinema, watching movie after movie. The movies were great. And it improved my mood a bit. When I checked my phone, I realized there were dozens of missed calls, all from Arlo. Trying to maintain theater etiquette, I turned off my phone as soon as I entered the cinema. I checked the most recent missed call, which was 10 minutes ago. I hesitated whether to call back, but in the end, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I saw it was already 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and my dad would be getting off work soon, so I decided to go home. Downstairs in the residential area, I saw Arlo's father. The two seemed to be in conflict. Chen's face was very unpleasant, he was speaking harshly to Arlo about something. Arlo's expression remained unchanged throughout, not retorting, but showing firmness. After the rare meeting, they parted ways. Chen left angrily, not even noticing me standing on the side. Arlo was waiting for me there. The two of us silently took the elevator. We were currently in a bit of a cold war, making it difficult for me to ask him what had happened. Arlo also did not ask me where I had been. At night, he didn't eat dinner. When his mood was off, he wouldn't eat dinner. Since I came back, he stayed holed up in his room without coming out. Before going to bed, my mom, feeling sorry for him, cooked a late-night snack for me to bring to him. I hesitated, standing at the door of his room, knocked. Mom was worried you might be hungry, so she made noodles for you. There was no response from inside. After a moment, Arlo opened the door, looked down at me, silently stepped aside. I walked in with the noodles and placed them on his desk. Arlo closed the door. And I didn't want to leave either. The atmosphere was a bit awkward, and my voice became quieter too. Eat quickly, the noodles will get cold. He picked up the bowl, took a couple of bites, looked up at me. His gaze made me uncomfortable. My mom knocked on the door. Has Xiaomu eaten? I quickly replied, he has. My mom yawned. That's good, comfort him well, don't let him be tangled up alone, talk to the family if something's wrong. I'm going to bed, wash the bowl later. I agreed. Arlo ate while staring at me. When he finished the noodles, I picked up the bowl to leave. Arlo approached me from behind and hugged me. Didn't Mom tell you to comfort me? His chin rested on my shoulder, speaking very close and soft. I blushed uncontrollably. Is it because you quarreled with your dad that you're in a bad mood? No. That must be me then. Did you go see The Hunter? I went to the movies. Arlo took the bowl from my hands and placed it aside, then unexpectedly lifted me up and pushed me onto the bed. I almost screamed, but he covered my mouth. He lay over me, face close to mine, as if he was about to kiss me the next second. Don't shout if you don't want your parents to find out. I couldn't handle it. Too torturous. He reluctantly released me. What are you doing? I whispered in frustration. He seemed to be observing me. The torment of wanting to kiss, but not doing it was unbearable. Do you dislike me like this? He suddenly asked. I dislike it. Shouldn't you hit me for acting like this? I was speechless. He asked again, who did you watch the movie with? I felt like if I said it was The Hunter, he would explode that I couldn't answer, and with the intense movements earlier, 2 buttons on my sleepwear had come undone. Arlo noticed it. My chest was heaving, heart beating rapidly. He reached out a hand to help me button up. I went alone. I finally spoke up. Arlo stayed silent. But I could feel that his mood had improved significantly. He pulled the blanket over us, turned to one side, with one arm still wrapped tightly around my waist. I didn't know what he intended. I want to go back to bed. I'll carry you back in the morning. What will your parents do? They won't know if you don't speak. Just be good and lie down without moving. During the 2 months of summer vacation, Arlo was my brother to others, but behind closed doors, he was my boyfriend. It was quite exhilarating, to be honest. Exciting enough that I might be getting caught up in it. Even after 3 months passed, I couldn't go back to simply regarding him as a brother. He couldn't treat me as a sister anymore. Things will never be the same. Time flew by, and as the holiday ended, Arlo and I packed our bags, boarded the high-speed train under the watchful eyes of our parents. Arlo and I were in the same city, but different schools. I didn't manage to score high enough to get into his school, falling short by more than 30 points. The undergraduate colleges in K-City were all in the city center, so we weren't too far apart. Not many people knew about our relationship here. We strolled hand in hand around the campus like an ordinary couple, reluctant to part at night as we cuddled by the artificial lake, feeding the mosquitoes. I had been holed up at home for 2 months without exercising, and my naturally weak body was further weakened, leading to a common cold that wouldn't go away even after a week. Arlo finally dragged me to the hospital for 4 fluids. I really hate injections. But the nurse thought Arlo was my boyfriend and secretly praised his good looks, which made me a bit happy. After all, he used to be my boyfriend. After recovering from the illness, Arlo made me jog with him every morning and evening to improve our fitness. In a vast playground, I couldn't even finish half a round before needing to rest. I walked and jogged, and Arlo slowed his pace to match mine. But he was strict, insisting that I complete 3 laps, and no matter how much I pouted, it didn't help. From barely making it through 1 lap at the beginning to gradually being able to persevere. We both seemed to be getting better. And as the deadline approached, it was like a needle approaching a balloon. One time, I went to Arlo's school to surprise him with lunch, without notifying him beforehand. When I arrived, I saw him waiting for food at a fast food restaurant off campus with Joanne. She said something to him, and Arlo had a gentle smile on his face. He didn't eat this kind of junk food himself, so he was accompanying her. In the end, I didn't have the courage to approach them, so I quietly went back. As October was coming to an end, I had one last meal with Arlo. We both tacitly avoided discussing the future. Before he dropped me off at the dormitory, Arlo stopped me. In the cool night breeze, the streetlight's glow shone down like moonlight as he kissed me. It was a tender kiss, his nose grazing mine. His lips soft and carrying a sweet fragrance. Before the dormitory matron scolded us, he patted my head and asked me to go upstairs. Apart from the college entrance exam, I had never remembered a date so clearly. After that night, he didn't contact me. I didn't reach out to him either. It seemed like we both knew that meeting again would put each other in an awkward situation. Lucho gave me a pair of white ice skates and asked if I had thoughts of being his girlfriend. I honestly confessed that I had just gone through a breakup and might take a long time to recover. And the skates looked expensive, maybe he should take them back and give them to a proper girlfriend in the future. He seemed to understand something and didn't probe further due to my emotional state. Sometimes I wonder if I will suddenly receive news of him being with Joanne. How would I react then? I think I would probably cry. Later, we met by chance with my roommates outside. His friend apparently recognized me, whispered something to him, and he listened quietly without changing expression, not looking in our direction, walking past as if we were strangers. My roommates noticed something and asked me softly, "Did you have a fight with your brother?" I said, "Sort of." "Are you afraid of awkwardness or unable to accept the version of him and me during those 3 months?" During the National Day holiday, I told my mom that I wanted to do social service to care for the elderly in the community during the break, as it was a mandatory credit requirement for graduation. In reality, I didn't want to see Arlo. I was afraid that when we met, I would show an expression I didn't want him to see. My mother sighed on the phone. Xiaomu also said he couldn't come back due to something at his school. "Why don't you come back either?" I was stunned after hearing that. It seemed that he also didn't want to see me. I was assigned to Aunt Zhang, who spoke a Hakka dialect I couldn't understand. Sometimes, longevity meant loneliness. Her children and grandchildren were all ahead of her, and in the blink of an eye, she had no close relatives left. Even when the light bulb in her room went out, there was no one to replace it, so I had to do it myself. Her crystal chandelier had some years on it, with its lampshade and ornaments covered in a thick patina. A slight movement caused the entire chandelier to sway creakily. Perhaps I was confused, but I actually heard Arlo's voice, "Lilia, come down." I looked down and saw Arlo himself standing in front of me, alive and well. With his handsome eyebrows furrowed, he looked at me with concern. I obediently climbed down from the stool. Aunt Zhang stuttered something, and I guessed she was probably asking who he was. "He's my brother." I pointed to Arlo. Aunt Zhang nodded and gave a thumbs up. Arlo took the light bulb from my hand, stood on the stool, unscrewed the old one, and replaced it with a new one. That's how the tragedy happened. The old steel cables couldn't bear the weight, and the heavy crystal chandelier fell off along with the electrical wiring. Despite Arlo reacting quickly and dodging, the metal edge of the lampshade still grazed his forehead. Because of my different positioning, I was not affected. Arlo lowered his head, and blood trickled from his forehead. Maybe my face looked too pale. Arlo comforted me in turn. "It just looks scary, I just got a little scratch." I took out my phone and quickly called for a car. When helping him, I realized my hands were shaking. The wound wasn't major, but it required several stitches. Arlo didn't use anesthesia, and his lips were white with a tight press. I was on the verge of tears. He reached out and touched my face. "Luckily it didn't hit you, otherwise, you'd be crying like a little kitten." "Will it scar?" I asked with a teary voice. "Afraid I won't look pretty," he brushed his lips. "Shouldn't make you look bad." He patted my head. "Then don't cry." Finally, I remembered to ask the question, "Why did you come to find me?" Arlo paused. "The changing of seasons between summer and autumn makes you allergic to pollen. Mom was worried about you and sent me to bring you masks and medicine. Mom probably felt our awkwardness and deliberately arranged for him to come to find me. You could have just messaged me about this." Arlo looked at me complexly for a while. He finally just gave a faint without giving me the answer I was hoping for, leaving me a little disappointed. After making sure there were no major issues, the doctor prescribed medicine, advised us on some precautions, and we were discharged from the hospital. Arlo walked by my side, and I actually wanted to support him, but I felt awkward about any physical contact. After all, we weren't just siblings anymore. Standing at the hospital entrance, I was debating whether to separate then and there when Arlo flagged down a car, opened the door, and looked at me. "You staying at the dorm these days?" "Yup." "Guojing went home. Want to come to my place?" He pointed to his forehead. "Can I claim a meal as compensation for your injury?" Starting from his junior year, he rented a house outside the campus. Arlo said this with a slight smile, seeming very natural. I nodded and got into the back seat. But I couldn't interact with him as smoothly as before. Just being in the same space with him made my hands sweaty. When we reached his place, it was pouring rain. We bought groceries at the supermarket outside, and some acquaintances greeted him in the community, jokingly asking if I was his girlfriend. Arlo didn't say anything, just smiled. Why didn't he explain? Others would misunderstand. My heart was thrown into chaos again. Arlo's home reflected his style, cool and impeccable. I spotted a gray shirt on the sofa but couldn't see it clearly before Arlo swiftly picked it up and hid it behind his back. He furrowed his brows. Guojings. I chuckled. You look so nervous, I thought it was yours. Is it mine? Keep it hidden. When he said that, he froze for a moment. Perhaps he was used to teasing me. We briefly passed over that topic. I'm actually a good cook, but don't do it often. Arlo hadn't said anything to me of that sort again. After dinner, we sat on the couch, eating fruit and watching a movie, feeling reminiscent of our childhood. Until the movie's main characters began kissing, taking off shoes and shirts. When we were kids and saw such scenes, Arlo would have me cover my eyes and immediately change the channel. But now, he didn't move a muscle. An awkward atmosphere spread between us. I stood up. I should go back to the dorm. Arlo grabbed my hand. The rain is too heavy, I'll wait for it to ease up before I walk you back. His hand was warm, and my face was heating up. No need, I said. Why not? He asked, afraid Lucho will be jealous. What about you? I absent-mindedly asked, aren't you afraid of Joyen being jealous? Arlo looked at me intently for a moment, his eyes seeming to slowly brighten. In an instant, it was as if everything became clear. He stood up, facing me, positioned a hand on my waist. My heart raced. What are you doing? Sugar doesn't work here. What are you doing? Can a brother do this to his sister? He leaned closer. No. Before I could react, he lifted me onto the sofa. Boyfriend can. Deceiver, the rain isn't even that heavy. The next day, I woke up in a jumble, just to receive a message from my best friend. Lilia. You still haven't given that candy to Luo, have you? Me, no, what's wrong? Best friend, it was a big misunderstanding. That candy didn't work at all. My cousin's boyfriend was just pretending with her. Me? Best friend, he didn't actually like my cousin that much, he just thought my cousin would give him that kind of childish candy to eat, silly and fun. So, with the idea of watching a show, he went along with her act. Those were his exact words when he chatted with his friends. 3 months were coming soon. My cousin's daily anxiety and confusion were all seen by him, not sure what she looked like with a worried heart. Of course, he didn't break up with my cousin, they continued for over a month like that. Later, someone intentionally showed my cousin screenshots of their chat, and that's when she found out she was deceived. She always felt guilty about this boyfriend she got with Candy, feeling like she drugged someone, which in fact, it was just drugging. So, she was very attentive to him after they got together, hoping to make him not disgust her too much when he remembered this period. After knowing the truth, my cousin immediately broke up with that guy, but he disagreed. Now the two are still entangled. He stands guard at her doorstep every day, rain or shine, very humble, even more like a drug addict than a drug addict. I walked in front of Arlo, looking at him solemnly. The candy was fake, right? You were pretending all along. Arlo's eyes showed surprise. Under my stern scrutiny, he slowly turned his head and swallowed hard. I was a bit overwhelmed. Oh my goodness, I must be an idiot. If I had known, I should have posted a question on Jiu earlier. How could there be such a high-tech candy in the world? Arlo embarrassed. It's not exactly fake. He grabbed my hand. I wanted to shake it off, wanted to shake harder, but was afraid of touching his wound. Whether he had eaten that candy or not, I had plans for you a long time ago. I just used it as an opportunity to give me the courage to not just be your brother. If you like me, you can just say it. I wanted to glare at him, but it seems like I had no intimidation. We didn't have any blood relations. What if I also liked you? Arlo smiled. I was afraid that saying it would disrupt the balance we have now, afraid that you would find me disgusting and keep far away from me from then on. How could I keep far away from you? Just a few days without seeing each other, it felt like there were bugs crawling in my heart. He bent down and kissed me. Looks like I bet right. Best friend summed up. It turned out that the candy that made Arlo devoted was me. I found her somewhat cheesy, yet surprisingly accurate. As for Joyen, she explained to me later that she did indeed like Arlo. She also confessed to Arlo when she helped out at the tea house that day, but she was rejected. That's why I saw her eyes were red when I came back with the medicine. Because she had been crying. Joyanne's family conditions were not very good, so when she suggested working at the shop during the summer holidays to earn some pocket money, Arlo agreed. He explained our current relationship to her, and she rarely saw Arlo so confused. Her words revealed a bitter and humble plea. She then suggested that she could help him figure out my attitude. She thought I liked him, but needed a bit of a crisis. Hence, Guijing's words, the special care, the half-sister, all deliberately in front of me. But my reaction disappointed Arlo. She couldn't bear to see it and thought that she might never have a chance to speak again, so in the gap when I left, she told Arlo her feelings. As expected, Arlo rejected her without hesitation. She felt like she had released a burden and felt relieved. What I saw at the fried chicken shop off campus was actually just a coincidental encounter between them. Guijing was also there, I just didn't see it from my angle, and he also wanted to eat fried chicken. She blinked and said she felt we were very sweet now. Arlo didn't say anything, but the smile at the corner of his mouth couldn't hide it. I remembered that evening walking on the path by the river, Arlo's shirt collar lifted gently by the wind, and I said with a double tongue, when the candy's effects wear off and you return to normal, do you want to give it a try with her? Actually, seeing his darkened face, my heart was filled with tiny ripples of excitement. If I didn't like him, what did it matter if the candy was real?